Continue. The Open Texas plan moves into its next phase, and Texas Democrats begin the latest rally to muster a blue wave. We'll review the debate between the Democratic Senate candidates, plus look at more wins by Republicans and special elections around the country.
This is the issue of this election.
Texas isn't great just by chance.
When you overtax, overregulate, and overlitigate, guess what? They're going to look for places to go.
The classic question in politics: are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? It's Texas.
We will never give up Texas!
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
All right, welcome to Let's Talk Texas. I'm your host, Jordan Overturf, and as always, I am joined by RPT Chairman James Dickey. Chairman, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
It was a great weekend. I was out at a bunch of conventions. We had county and Senate district conventions around the state on Saturday, and it was fantastic. Looking forward to a lot more of those this week and this weekend.
Yeah, I got mine coming up in 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to it. And we're going to get to that and more on this show. But first, we got to obviously get to the hot topics that folks are talking about. Protests continued across the country, with Texas seeing tensions escalate between protesters and police officers. Meanwhile, the governor is continuing with his phased reopening of Texas as part of the continuing response to coronavirus. I got to ask you, Chairman, if you're a business owner, what do you make of this current situation? And do you think right now, if you're a business owner, are you more focused on the looters, the potential backlash from the local state governments, or simply going out of business?
Well, it really depends on where the business is located. Having just gone through this mandatory shutdown, the majority of businesses clearly have to be trying to figure out how to stay afloat and bring back their clientele. But if that business is located in a downtown area in a major city where protests are happening, they're having to choose between potentially making a profit or potentially being ransacked and being worse off. And many of those businesses are unfortunately having to choose to board up their windows for their own safety.
Yeah, it's really shocking to see the response. Initially, when you came downtown at the beginning of the coronavirus response, you saw all those businesses boarded up, for the protection of the fact that people weren't going to be there. And now these downtown areas are flooded, and they're having to put boards up again to keep people from coming in and just destroying windows. I saw a video over the weekend that rioters were throwing rocks at the windows at a children's hospital. I don't understand this, right? And these attacks by Antifa, a subversive force, whatever you want to call them, are getting more and more obscene. And now this call to defund police is getting louder, with people like Rep. Ilhan Omar saying we need to reimagine public safety. Minneapolis, the city council voted to defund its police there in that city. Austin City Council right now is having a Zoom press conference discussion on reformations that they can do within the department. I mean, are these calls to defund the police serious? Can we take any of this seriously at this point, Chairman?
Well, I don't think these are serious proposals, but I do think we always have to take extremism seriously and respond. I think what's gaining traction in Minneapolis because of the wounds there and because of the brinkmanship with the police unions there. And I think once again, it showed that, public sector unions are not a good thing. It's one of the reasons why our platform calls against withholding funds for public sector unions, because you end up with these kind of difficulty. I mean, there's a real discussion happening and should happen regarding police accountability, police powers, justice, and equality under the law. And our platform addresses many of those issues in a much less reactionary way than just a blanket defunding of police.
Yeah, and certainly the president has made criminal justice reform a pillar of his administration. Young Republicans have joined the Republican Party in its call for various reforms on criminal justice. So I think, if anything, certainly the volume is increasing and the discourse is continuing. But as we look at this from an election cycle standpoint, who are these protesters going to support? It doesn't seem like they're for anybody except for chaos.
Well, there is a lot going on. And so once again, it's going to be another biggest election of our lifetime. As far as who the protesters are going to support, I think the Democrats are already taking them for granted and hoping they forget that the brutality we witnessed in Minneapolis with George Floyd was a result of Democrat-controlled cities' policies and a potential Democratic VP candidate, Amy Klobuchar, when she served as district attorney. It was her office's failure to prosecute Derek Chauvin for previous uses of force and misconduct. There is an opportunity here to remind them of how badly the Democrats have failed for all of their promises.
Yeah, and when you look at these, these special elections, for all the crowing that these protesters and rioters are doing right now, they don't seem to be showing up at the ballot box. I mean, Republicans continue to sweep these special elections around the country. How are Republicans winning in such a divisive climate?
Well, I believe in my core that the reason we win is because our principles and our hard work we have the right principles, and we are willing to do the work and able to do the work with our volunteers and the team we built over the last couple of years.
Well, and I think that's why you also see more and more support for the president and his response to the coronavirus. Obviously he's getting pushback for his response to the rioting, but at the same time, we know he's a president of action. And if he sees a problem in this country, I don't think anyone should be surprised that he wants to take action to subdue that. But meanwhile, here on the home front, things are getting fired up in the Texas Democratic Party. They had a debate for their Senate primary runoff candidates over the weekend. Did you catch any of that bout between MJ Hager and State Senator Royce West?
Man, that was supposed to be a debate between two Democrat runoff candidates for the United States Senate. And instead, all it was a race to socialism, each of them vying to be the most leftist and the most extreme. All that was left was a question of who's going to follow Joe Biden and leading the Democrat Party in Texas off the cliff in November. Neither of these candidates are a match for the steady leadership of Senator John Cornyn throughout his tenure in the United States Senate. Their sophomoric theatrics demonstrate one more reason for Texans to reject their socialist policies. And without a doubt, the winner of the Democrat debate was Senator John Cornyn and the Texans, who so clearly have even more reason than ever to reelect him.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing, and I've run primary runoffs before, and I've never seen the tactic of just attacking your opponent in the fall helping create any contrast between the person you're trying to win the immediate election against. They each took chances to swipe at Senator Cornyn for his leadership, basically calling it a lack thereof and not representing for Texas. Never mind the fact that, when Texas needed him most in the response after Hurricane Harvey, he and Senator Cruz went to bat and made sure that we got that crucial funding that we needed. And he continues to fight for Texas. Meanwhile, there were a lot of distractions during the debate. MJ Hager was all over the place with some of her tax policies, saying that we need to make sure that corporations pay their fair share, right? But at the same time, she's saying that businesses need to be shut down right now from coronavirus. So you're not going to allow businesses to make any money and provide the tax dollars. And when you do bring them back, you are going to raise taxes on them because they're not paying their fair share. It boggled the mind, and maybe this might have something. I'm not going. In any case, one of the flashpoints in the debate was the discussion over marijuana reform. And both of them admitted to previous use. Senator West called it a youthful indiscretion. Hager referenced that many states have legalized it, but didn't further elaborate on her past or possible current experiences. I got to ask you, as more and more people talk about this, obviously the discussion is going more state to state. How big of an influence do you think marijuana use will be on voters this November?
Well, there are single issue voters, and that could be the case, both pro and anti with marijuana voters. I'm not sure what the numbers actually look like on that, but I don't think it's going to be a major issue in this election or going forward.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem to be a tipping point issue since the Republican Party has its own stance on marijuana reform. And so, both sides of the aisle have taken on this issue, and the discussion continues to evolve, especially with the legislature choosing to legalize CBD and industrial hemp last session. The conversation continues to change there. Meanwhile, Texas Democrats also stepped up activity across the board over the weekend, celebrating raising $1 million for their voter engagement project. And the leader of that project did a Facebook Live where they shaved his head, all of that stuff. I don't know, Chairman, how do you think this $1 million voter engagement effort compares to what the RPT has mounted?
Well, so first of all, we had $1 million month back in March, and that was, we called it March. And that's part of our diligent work to go forward. But not only that, they celebrated raising $1 million, but the vast majority of that money, as in all Texas Democrat efforts, is pouring in from out of state money, pouring in that's interested in promoting socialism in Texas. Texas Democrats are followers. They've followed national Democrat lead, and part of that is because they're depending on money from outside of Texas. On the other hand, the RPT, the Republican Party of Texas, we are firing on all cylinders. We have more cash on hand than in any previous cycle, and we continue to meet all our goals, even in the middle of this pandemic. We are right on track to deliver victory in November on all fronts, from the White House to the courthouses all over Texas, and on the right track to beat the Democrats in November, to protect and hold our majorities in Texas, and to win for President Trump and deliver all of Texas's 38 electoral college votes for his reelection.
Yeah, and we've got plenty more on the horizon with 5 days of calling event coming up later this month. What is the party doing to ensure integrity of the November election?
Well, first thing we've done is fight back very hard as the Democrats in Texas and across the country have been fighting for vote by mail. And again, that's not the right to ask for a mail-in ballot. They want to just plain mail out ballots, and that's crazy. And we've been right in the middle of the fight in Texas, and it's working. Every appeals court, the appeals court and the Texas Supreme Court have both, the federal appeals court and the Texas Supreme Court have both come down and said, no, judges don't get to make up law. We get to defend the integrity of the November election. We get to avoid disenfranchisement of legal votes by making it up on the fly and succumbing to Democrats' attempt to take advantage of another crisis. And we are so grateful the Texas State Supreme Court upheld Texas state law regarding mail-in ballots. And we also will continue to be dedicated to ensuring a fair and transparent process. And that includes all of our voter defense initiatives. We are fighting for early voting ballot boards to work on all of that, for alternate and election judges and clerks all over the state. We've already been doing the recruiting, already been doing the appointing work on that. What most people don't realize, the work to win in November has to be happening right now. And that has been happening at the RPT for voter defense initiatives all over the state.
Yeah, and to be very clear, the state already allows mail-in voting, especially for the folks who would be considered to be most at risk during the coronavirus response.
Exactly. So two big things. One, Texas has the most open voting time period. We have a 2-week voting period where you can show up at any time for any reason or no reason to vote then instead of on election day. And significant percentages of people show up on all those other days. And there's been a lot of work to expand the days and times that that's available. Then on top of that, we automatically allow anyone who is 65 and over to ask for a ballot by mail, and 65 and over have accounted for 76% of the COVID deaths. It is the highest risk group, and it automatically already qualifies. So again, this push by the Democrats completely upend our entire voting process and all the management of our voting, and to do it in a couple of months' time had nothing to do with safety, had nothing to do with the ability of Texans to be safe and cast their vote at the same time. It was all a chance and an attempt to subvert the proper process and to upend and take advantage of a crisis.
Yeah. And 2 points that I want to make sure that we make is that, first off, anytime Democrats take Texas to a courtroom over an issue like this, they automatically cry voter suppression, right? And Texas is so open in its voting process, yet it is incumbent upon the voters themselves to decide what is the best scenario for them, which brings me to point number 2. People don't realize that even though we have 2 weeks of early voting, that when the numbers come out on election day, never fails, you're usually seeing about a 50-50 split in terms of the number of people who show up. So 50% of the total people who vote end up showing up on election day. And the other 50% spread it out over 2 weeks, which includes a Saturday and Sunday in the middle of that. The schedules vary from county to county, but by and large, there's about 12 hours of voting period in that last week that you can get to the polls. And I have been out there as a poll greeter. I know how slow those polling locations get. The only time that they're busy is if, they're located at a tax office and everyone's coming in for their registrations. But now, with the coronavirus response and things like that, more of those folks probably will be doing that stuff online, which gives you even more security. And that if you show up early to a polling location, many of the counties have countywide polling locations open during early voting, which means you don't even have to find a specific precinct to go vote at. It's so easy, and it's so disingenuous to hear those calls that there's voter suppression or things like that. And meanwhile, you bring up another valid point that obviously there are some folks who are trying to take advantage of a crisis in our country right now. Meanwhile, on Friday, we got one of the most positive job reports that we have seen in a while. It was a stunner for many across the country. Chairman, what are some of the highlights of that, and what do you think it means for us going forward?
Well, it showed without a doubt that the economy has begun to reopen under Governor Abbott and President Trump, and our record, and it's the reopening after a halting that was only caused by a global pandemic to what had been record job gains over and over again. President Trump helped by getting government out of the way to help us build the strongest economy in history, and he's doing so once again. In May, millions of jobs were added, far better than the predicted job loss of 7.5 million. There were key gains in multiple industries, including manufacturing, construction, health, retail, and restaurants, and the unemployment rate dropped, coming in well under the expected 20%. The bottom line is this is not the job report Joe Biden wanted to wake up to, and it's not the one he thought he was going to wake up to. He had actually planned a big press conference, and then when the numbers came out, they said, never mind.
Yeah, not shocking to see him fold like a lawn chair on that one. And then we also had a report over the weekend that said the DFW International Airport was the busiest airport for the month of May.
The busiest airport in the world.
In the world. So setting high marks here in Texas as we lead responsibly on the reopening. I mean, even with all the protests and everything going on, it seems like for the most part, businesses are seeing shoppers come back. Do you think those fears about the economy bouncing back are starting to look as overblown as the fear surrounding coronavirus?
Fearmongers are wrong so often, it makes you wonder how they stick around. I never lost confidence in our ability to come back from this and everything else. Anyone who underestimates Americans, and specifically anyone who underestimates Texans, is in for being wrong over and over again.
Absolutely. So this next topic is a little tough to get into, but it's one that, I think it's important. A lot of people over the weekend stood up against some of these crazy comments that were coming out of various GOP county leaders. Republicans across Texas united against of people in our own party and showing solidarity against hateful speech. I, for one, was proud to see members of this party stand up and hold each other accountable for this type of rhetoric. As the party chairman, I'm just curious, what do you make of the response this weekend?
Well, we are the party that was formed. The Republican Party of Texas was formed over 150 years ago. I got the sign right here celebrating the 150th anniversary by Black men for the purpose of providing the vote to freedmen. We have fought for equality and equality of opportunity for our entire history. It was therefore not at all surprising that our response to the sharing of posts that had racial content, our response was strong and swift, as it should be. This is not time to make light of a serious incident. The very unfortunate and inappropriate death. And it's a serious incident and serious conversation that we are having as a nation. So, and those of us in our party leadership have to be held to a high standard, because we no longer speak just for ourselves, but for our party as well.
Yeah, and it was great to see, state leaders like Governor Abbott come out against this. The House Republican Caucus put out a long list of their members coming out against the comments made by the various chairs. We have seen that at least one of the chairs has decided to step down, opening up an opportunity there. You yourself had to step up in a time of need for the Travis County Republican Party. I'm just kind of curious, as someone who's gone through an experience where a county party needs to elect new leadership to bring about institutional change. What is your advice to anyone looking to take on that mantle? And for you as the chairman, what are the qualities of leaders that you want to see here in the Republican Party?
Well, as I was talking to the staff this morning, one of the good things come out of this unfortunate experience is a reminder of just how important the county chairman position is. And it is a significant role in our party. The county chair is legally liable for managing our primary. So that requires organization and planning and management to recruit and set up dozens, if not hundreds, depending on the county, of workers at poll locations all over the county, and to work with the county management on where the best locations are and how to make sure we avoid voter disenfranchisement by making sure that we protect and defend every voter's legitimate vote. Then on top of that, you have to work with campaigns, and you have to work with volunteers, and you have to recruit volunteers and raise funds to manage the effort. You have to help provide additional resources, and you have to lead by example. And all of this is a difficult job, and it's an important one. And working with the precinct chairs is a key function. In this case, in the Harris County, the precinct chairs will be electing a new county chair for Harris County. And the most important things to look for is it someone who has committed to our principles and our values? Is it someone who can recruit and organize and excite others and get them involved and make sure that we put the team on the field that we need to, that whoever this is that gets elected is going to be coming in August 3rd. They're going to be coming in 90 days before the election. Now, fortunately, at the Republican Party of Texas, we have a lot of resources we are and will be devoting to that area. So whoever steps up into that role will have a lot of support coming from the plan we've been executing for a year and a half now. But it is so important that this role be taken seriously and be given the weight that it should have. And so as precinct chairs are looking at potential candidates, it needs to be someone who can work with the grassroots, who can fight for our principles, who can work with elected officials, who can help raise money, and who can manage an operation well and is willing to do all of that on a volunteer basis. It's a significant ask and a significant responsibility. And to every one of the 250 county chairs that we have out there serving, I am grateful to each of you for the work you do. And we are working at the RPT to make sure we provide you as much support and help and back up as possible.
Yeah. And it's there, by and large, are so many great Republicans out there who are focused on what we really need to be doing right now, which is strategize, organize, mobilize. So thank you to those folks who are out there leading the fight, making the phone calls, who are itching to get out there, do some grassroots activity. Obviously, we've got more county conventions that were taking place this past weekend. There's more coming up. What's the latest report from the field, and what's the latest on state convention in Houston next month?
Well, I'm hearing great reports from all over the state. I've attended some of the county and Senate district conventions over the weekend. They were very well attended, and that's what I'm hearing. And I'm hearing reports of sending full delegate allocations to our state convention. So we are on track to host an in-person state convention in Houston, July 16th to 18th. Everybody should go and register to make sure they get their spot and get their great hotel room. It's at texasgop.me/register. And again, that's texasgop.me/register. And you can register for the convention. We are going to be holding an RPT State Convention Update Town Hall tomorrow night, Tuesday, June 9th at 7 p.m. Central. We're going to go over all the planning details and take any questions people may have. You can get all the details for that call on our Facebook page. Please make sure you set your calendar, be ready, call in on that town hall. And if you have any questions, let me know then.
Excellent. Yeah. I'm very excited about state convention, especially since it's in my hometown of Houston. Always great to go back, hit the hot spots, the old haunts, at least the ones that are still there, man. That city changes minute by minute. Meanwhile, the president shook up national convention last week, announcing that it would no longer be held in Charlotte. But I thought I heard that there's some rules issues with how the convention takes place, and that the actual convention process still has to go on in Charlotte. Can you first clarify the rules on the process for national convention?
Yes. So by rule, the president and vice president must be nominated in Charlotte. So that's going to happen because our rules also allow the RNC, the committee, to delegate our responsibility to an executive committee. So that executive committee can show up and have that vote. Then we also need to adopt rules and platform. We're not really sure what to do with that exactly. We talked about some options, including maybe just carrying over the last cycle's rules and platform and not making any changes. But the governor of North Carolina has really given us no choice. We can't plan on a full-blown convention in Charlotte, but by rule, we have to have that actual vote to do the actual nomination in Charlotte. We're gonna manage both those issues.
So the discussion has been that there is going to be a second location more for the celebratory aspect of convention. But I'm curious, what does that mean for the folks who are looking to become national delegates? Do we know, if they will be part of that small group in Charlotte, or will there be a different function for those national delegates for the second location?
So the experience for the vast majority of delegates is going to be no different. Every state is only allowed to send one man and one woman to each of the committees. So of our 155 delegates and 155 alternates, we had a total of 4 people serving on the Platform and Rules Committee. So the vast majority of delegates didn't serve on those committees. We'll figure out how they live stream it or otherwise make it available for people to participate and follow along, whether those have to happen there or not, and if so, how they do. But again, for the vast majority of people, if you'd like to run to be a national delegate, your experience will still be very, very similar. You'll still be able to participate in the great events where we will celebrate the nomination of President Trump and Vice President Pence to be our presidential and vice presidential candidates for November.
Yeah. And even if it is a second event, I mean, national convention usually lays the foundation for some pretty historic speeches. And I think that is just as important as the process of nominating the president and the vice president is to hear these inspiring messages, not just from party leaders, but from, average Americans who are given the opportunity, whether, they served overseas in the military, whether they run a company that is working hard to promote more conservative values and more public-private partnerships that limit government's influence while expanding, services to the community. It's just an amazing opportunity for Republicans to showcase all of their ideas for the future of the country. So I think it's still going to be inspiring. But meanwhile, DFW is on the short list, and already Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins, everyone's favorite champion for liberty in Texas, is already trying to kill any discussion around RNC coming to Dallas. Can he do that? And how foolish is it to turn down an opportunity to bring what will be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in economic impact to businesses that have been devastated by his shelter-in-place orders?
Well, the impact of the national convention is hundreds of millions of dollars. So that would be a foolish move. But most convention centers are either owned by the city or the county. I'm not sure on the Kay Bailey Hutchison Center, but it's possible he could have some impact on that, either making it difficult or denying it. Over the weekend, I heard him trying to walk a line on it, discouraging it, but not indicating that he actually had the ability to do anything. We know from our experience how grateful the city of Houston, the Convention Visitors Bureau, the George R. Brown Convention Center, and our hotel partners have been that we are actually going to move forward with our convention. Some people have been near tears in their conversations with us because our convention meant the difference in them being able to keep their job and not. I mean, it's really a shocking level of partisanship from Clay Jenkins to see him want to inflict the economic pain on people just because he doesn't like the president and the Republican Party. It's frankly heartless, but that's what we're seeing over and over again from the Democrat Party in the middle of this coronavirus. Voters need to remember what they have seen, the tiny tyrant tendencies they've seen from these Democrat despots. It's really pretty pathetic, and I hope they remember it to the core come November.
Look, I say we do it at Jerry World, right? Let's bring convention to Jerry World. You get Trump on that the Jumbotron that they got there. That thing is massive. Can you imagine the visual Right.
Well, I can tell you that a big part of what the RNC is really excited about is that facility. And I don't know about its availability. I don't know the extension of the conversations. I do know it gets mentioned as Dallas a lot because they name a city. But I know when they say Dallas, they mean DFW, and they really are thinking about the whole area. And I know the folks in Tarrant County are amazing, and the facilities in Tarrant County are great as well, and becoming even better. I'm excited about the party being able to consider Fort Worth again for convention 2024 and going forward. So we've got good things in North Texas.
All right. And here's my other idea. He says with a generous slathering of sarcasm, let's just make it a protest, right? They won't fight us. If we stage the national convention as a protest, then health experts will be on board. The Democrats will be on board. I'm telling you, this is a foolproof plan. This is how we move forward with national convention. We can go back to Charlotte and say, no, Governor, this is a protest. This is clearly not a political event. This is part of our First Amendment rights. Moving on. Volunteer recruitment is such a huge part of what RPT does. It's what Texas YRs, Republican women, every Republican group is getting active. So with convention on the horizon, national convention not long thereafter, and then November 3rd, a short turnaround from there, what can Texans do to get involved this election cycle?
Well, the absolute best way for anybody to get involved is sign up for our 10K for 10R program. Our goal is to have 10,000 volunteers who each contact 10 unregistered Texas likely Republican voters and ask them if they would like us to get them registered. And if so, our staff will follow up and get them registered. And to sign up, all you have to do is text 10K, 10K to 72,000, 72000. Text 10K to 72,000, and we'll get signed up.
So for those who want to volunteer from home, are there opportunities that are going to be available this election cycle?
Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the great things about 10K for 10R. It can all be done at home and over the phone. It's one of the reasons why we continue to have great success doing it, even in the middle of this biggest pandemic in a century. We've also been hosting online training sessions and online phone bankings that Texans can participate in from their home. And again, the best way to get in contact with our staff and get plugged in to volunteer is to go to our website at texasgop.org. There's a form that pops up when you go there, or if you miss that, go to join our team. And there's a link for that, and it's at texasgop.org/join-our-team.
Yep. And we've got the 5 days of calling event that'll be going June 18th through 22nd. Is a great opportunity for folks who just want to get their feet wet, try out doing some grassroots activities from home. So 10K for 10R, 5 days of calling, lots of stuff to get involved with, lots of ways for you to do your part to hashtag Keep Texas Red this November. That's it for our show today, Chairman. Before we get out of here, did you catch the governor at Texas Motor Speedway on Saturday? Seemed like a great day for racing.
It did seem like a great day for racing, and I look forward to being able to be out there again to watch events in person. But yeah, he seemed to have a lot of fun with that, joking about the steering wheel and the like, and getting one for his wheelchairs. That was pretty funny. And yeah, UFC had another event again. Without a crowd. I look forward to them having them again with a crowd.
Oh my God, that Sugar Sean O'Malley KO of Eddie Wineland. I dropped my phone and fell on the floor. Like, I felt like he knocked me out through the phone. It's so crazy. And then Conor McGregor out of nowhere, announces his retirement right out of the fight. I don't know. Chair, do you follow UFC? Are you interested in this at all?
I've got some friends who've been involved in it, and it is fun to watch every once in a while. I wasn't real excited about the way O'Malley prematurely celebrated a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was very cool, but the hit was pretty impressive.
I mean, you never want to celebrate too early, but man, that knockout just, whew, I'm not a huge UFC person, but I definitely tune in to watch these big card fights. And, I had heard that Conor was actually going to come back and do a fight. So this retirement was stunning. I hear there's some other, inside the cage stuff going on there with regard to fighter pay and stuff. So maybe it's just a stunt like that, but Dana White, huge supporter of the Republican Party, gave a speech at RNC last in 2016. So hopefully he can get all this settled up and get the chance to join us for national convention. Chairman, anything else before we get out here? Anything Texas Republicans need to have at the front of their minds right now?
Check on your county website. If you haven't already had your county or Senate district convention, by all means, check that out. If you have become a delegate or alternate or would like to come as a guest, by all means, go to texasgop.me/register and sign up to come to our convention in July. It's going to be amazing. I look forward to seeing everybody there.
Excellent. Well, next week, we'll continue to keep an eye on the economy, the protests, the reopening of Texas, all of that stuff, plus more of what's coming up with convention and what you can do to keep Texas red. Friends, thank you for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Talk Texas. You can follow Chairman James Dickey on Twitter at James Dickey. And for the latest on how we're going to keep Texas red, follow the Republican Party of Texas on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.